Thank you so much for listening to this episode of for Parents. And I'm pretty stoked about this episode because I invited a friend of mine on who is running for office. And while I typically don't like to feature candidates, or get into specific races on this platform, I tend to focus just on issues that as parents we need to be educated on. I made an exception here because Loretta's a friend. I met her when I was in the Emerge New Jersey candidate training program last year in 2024. And she's just an amazing person. She's a single mom. She's raised two children that are now getting older and moving on in life. And she's doing something for herself in running for office. And she's doing something pretty bold, which is challenging a Democratic incumbent in a primary for our state assembly. So I wanted to take a chance just to introduce you to Loretta, to hear from, a real life parent who actually has taken the step to run for office, who's standing up for what she believes is right and representing people in her community and uplifting voices that may not be heard. That's just kind of my perception of her race and what I think is really valuable. Because while I always say, you don't need to quit your job or run for office, and you don't really need to. It's sufficient and it's necessary that we all just kind of become educated and involved as private citizens. I also think, when candidates arise that I think are impactful, that could use, a platform, and also, when we find candidates that are inspiring in our own lives, I think it's really worth it for us to roll up our sleeves and make time to get involved to help elect them to office, because that's also a really key part of our democracy is, us private citizens understanding local races, understanding the role that, local and state governments can play in our elections. And when we find somebody that's inspiring, making the time to help volunteer for campaigns or donate or host a fundraiser or spread the word, advocate for them. Because I've found that incredibly rewarding in my own life. I've found it's made the difference when I've been able to really, burn the midnight oil to help get a candidate elected, especially if they're facing kind of an uphill battle against a party establishment incumbent. So I wanted to have that conversation with Loretta about what her campaign is about, why I think she's just such a phenomenal person. I hope that all of you moms out there that are working, that are hustling every day to make a better world for your kids, I hope you'll be inspired and uplifted by Loretta. And I certainly hope everyone here, enjoys learning about Loretta and her race and maybe gets inspired to take action in your own way. Thank you. Loretta Rivers, thank you so much for taking some time with me today on Politics for Parents. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Nicole, for having me. I just appreciate it. I'm good. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. I know it's yesterday, but Mother's Day is every day, right? So we
Yes,
push through every day, 365 out the year. Am I correct with that? So that's
I love that.
yes,
Yes, we should celebrate ourselves every
every
day.
day.
I am 100% with you. So, I'm really excited to have you on. I think you're such an inspiring person. We met through the Emerge New Jersey program last year in our cohort. And from the moment I met you, I really loved your energy. And then when I heard about your background and your story, I just think you're such an amazing woman. And now here you are running for office. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey with the audience, because I think other moms out there and other parents, I think, would really benefit from just hearing from someone like you and be inspired to hear your story.
Well, thank you, Nicole. So thank you for inviting me to Politics for Moms. And I am a Jersey girl. First and foremost, I have been born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. I come from working parents. One is a electrician, and my dad is an electrician, and my mom's a nurse. And they worked for me and my sister all our lives, and we had a very, really decent childhood. And I must say, growing up in Newark was a great experience. Was grew up in a time where our town was very diverse in the section of Newark, and I've never look back, we still have friends to this day. Moving forward, went to Catholic school all my life, right? So I don't know no other way. And then went to college here for a minute, and then moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, where I finished my degree in public administration. And that's where I got into some politics. I did, worked on some campaigns there, and just enjoyed just working with people and grassroots organizations. Even dipped my toe into Habitat for Humanity as a volunteer down there. So very versed in, the culture in Atlanta. So fast forwarding, I moved back up to New Jersey, had my son in Atlanta, moved back here, and moved back to Newark where, it all started, but it changed so much, right? So with children and working and just saying, this is, the possibilities are endless here in New Jersey. I forwarded to Piscataway, but before I went to Piscataway, I still wanted to do some politics, right? I just still had my children. They were little. And I remember the campaign, we were voting for first time for President Barack Obama in office. And I was in the line like in 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the line was so long. I had my children out there with me. And I said,
Wow.
God, I want to be a part of this. I want to make a difference. And back then they were called district leaders, right? And
Huh.
this is 20 years ago, right? District leaders, and you only could have one male and one female in each district at the time. And I was got to the front of the line. I saw my district leader. She was a woman. And I says, I just love what you do. And I just want to ask, are you running again? Because I really want to run for the seat. And I just want to make sure that, you allow, you can help me. Or if you're still running, maybe I can shadow you. And she said to me, this is how you're supposed to do it, right? You ask people to help and not just run, or you just be a courteous. And she says, so that's what happens when people just run and just don't ask, right? They don't ask for the seat. She said something about the seat at the table. But she said, but thank you for even asking me, right? And after that, she said, I am running, but shadow me. And that's what I did. I shadowed her for about a year or two. I got a great experience from her. And
Great.
then I just said, Newark was not the best place for my children. And I told her thank you. And then, we moved out here to Piscataway, New Jersey. And then that's where I said, well, I could still do what I want to do out here. Of course,
Yeah.
Piscataway is totally different. It's not urban. It was more suburban. And I remember a lady knocking on my door. I didn't know who she was, but she was my district leader at the time. And I said, well, I really like, to get involved. I want to be a district leader. And she was like, I'm the district leader. Right. And I was taken aback because she was like kind of aggressive with
Oh
it.
gosh.
Yeah. But I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, that's was your role. But did she say, oh no, it's okay. You could be a part of my committees. Right. So I said, oh, okay. So that's when I started to be a part of the committees. And that's how you start learning your neighborhood, because I was new to the neighborhood. And I met a lot of good people in the district too, as well. But she stayed in the position for quite some time. So I said, well, evidently I'm not going to be a district leader or county committee member anytime soon. Let me just raise my children, right? Fast forward 20 years later, raising children and just being a part of the community, right? Just doing other things, part of other nonprofit organizations. I am part of my sorority, which is Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And we are a nonprofit organization that helps with, the community scholarship service. And we do a lot in Middlesex. We cover a large territory in Middlesex. And I deal with the youth group too as well. So that kept me busy. And my job with Habitat for Humanity, I've been there for 13 years. I'm the director of family services there, and we advocate for low to affordable housing. So I had a lot going on in, mom duties and everything else. So
Yep.
20 years like snapped. It went very quickly. But I see as more, as the children got older, right? They tend to be a little self-sufficient, and I had a little more time to do some things for me, which I like. And it's always went back to advocacy in some form of fashion, right? If it wasn't mental health or youth or, just something in the community, reaching out. I am part of my board of education here in Piscataway as a school board member. I enjoy being on the school board. I'm a part of my policy committee and my curriculum committee, and also culture and climate committee too. So it's well versed. It keeps me very busy. But we're always advocating. We're always advocating for the children, policy for education, my work policy for low to affordable housing. I'm down in Trenton, we're making statements. I'm always doing something for the good of the community. And then of course, I'm about to be an empty nester. It's bittersweet. I had my last one going to college. And I was just thinking about, my life, right? You always think about, you're always doing for someone, right? As a mom, you continue to do, and you always put yourself like at the back seat. And for like maybe I'm gonna say 4 or 5 years, I've been like running for our advocacy. My sorority has a social action platform, and I always said that I wanted to do more, just do more. And of course, I live in Middlesex County, and Middlesex County has a very big political machine. And I try to get in where I can and do, some part. And it always says, be on a committee, wait your turn. And I always say, what is wait my turn? Right? Like I just never understood wait my turn. What does that mean? 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, and no one never got back with me. But to this year, of course, you see in the hierarchy of the federal government, things are changing rapidly. I just don't want to like kind of get into it, but we must make a change somewhat drastically, right? And who is better to make a change than people on the ground who does the grassroots? And last year, I decided, I kept on toiling and I decided I'm going to run. I'm going to run. I'm going to run. And
Yep.
that's when I started to look like, I want to be out the box. I know I'm a housing advocate. I know that's my niche, but I want to do more. I could have went to the council seat, or I could have ran for a council in my
Mhm.
town, but I wanted to change law. I wanted to make a difference in my district to serve the masses, right? So I started redoing my research, and like I just looking at all the candidates, and I just kept on looking at this, all of them, which who's making a difference. And I know most of them probably can make a difference in their own way, but one stuck out to me, and he was bringing people up with him. And I just said, it's not an I, it's never I, it's always a we. Right. And he made sure that it was a we. And I made sure I did my research. I did my due diligence. I went and looked at him, right, as well. And I joined one of the gubernatorial candidates team. And of course, for me as Loretta Rivers, working, try a candidate for the Assembly District 17 where I'm at. But, you have to bring people up together with you who are like-minded and want the same things for you too as well in the state of New Jersey. So that's where I'm at, right? That's where I came at full-fledged. And I'm enjoying it, right? You enjoy what you do when it's meaningful, and it's transparent, and there's nothing else behind it. You're not looking for anything else but to serve the people, right? And that's what I've always been. Have always been a servant of the people whatever I do. So I don't think I know I will be a good candidate for this position, and I will make my best efforts to help all the constituents in my district.
Well, great. Thank you so much for that background, and for your passion for all the work you've done for your community. I mean, I always think that it's so helpful to have a diverse slate of candidates and people in elected office at any governing body that bring different perspectives, right? That bring real world experience and a passion to actually help others. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole concept of waiting your turn. I mean, look at like the makeup of Congress or most governing bodies. You've got people that are just like there forever. We don't have term limits, and we have people that just sit and sit and sit. And I'd love to get new people and new ideas. So it's really exciting that you're running. I know you alluded to a little bit that you're on Steve Fulop's slate of candidates. He's kind of built his campaign. What's attracted me to it is, as you kind of mentioned, bringing new perspectives and bringing in people that are not part of the status quo and the status, like the machine, as you will. And I think there's a lot of really interesting issues. Like you mentioned housing. Housing is a nationwide crisis right now. New Jersey, it's particularly bad, but nationwide, it's an issue. And I think also I've talked about on other episodes of this podcast the power you do have at the state level. I mean, the state government really does make a difference. And you are in the community with people, like seeing the issues, and then you can go to Trenton and actually make change. I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the issues that motivated you, especially because, you're running against a Democratic incumbent. So you're really, in a battle, next month in this primary. So what kind of inspired you to take on this challenge of running against an incumbent too? And what are some of the issues that are really motivating your run?
So you're absolutely right. I am running against two incumbents in my district.
Yeah.
And from several years back, I'm going to say this, we have an advocacy platform at my job, and we go to each assemblyman or Congress to talk a little bit about the housing and what can they help us with, and just, put them, just make them aware of what we're facing here in the state of New Jersey and in our district. And unfortunately, we have never heard back from them, my incumbents. We email, we talk, we call. There has never been any response. Just to even have a
Really?
conversation, no conversation, none at all.
And this is in your capacity at Habitat for
At
Humanity, you're saying?
Habitat for Humanity, right? So we
Wow.
never reached out. Like it was just unbelievable. Like not a callback, nothing, just crickets. And I just said, this is unreal. Like, we're their boss. I mean, we don't get a call, no nothing, or just say, the schedule is full, maybe next month, nothing. Right. And that really kind of turned me to like just saying, what is this about? Right. And then I start thinking in my own capacity as an individual, have I ever seen him in my town? Has he ever like done anything for the community? Has he ever knocked on a door that I've ever seen? And I've been here 20 years. I've never seen no one knock on my door, say hello or anything to me. And that kind of got me kind of stirred up, right? And I'm kind of
Yeah.
fiery, I'm feisty anyway, but I just
Yeah.
it got me stirred up. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, why can't we get a conversation? Then start thinking long term, no town halls ever mentioned, never in our town of Piscataway. I mean, I've never seen it in New Brunswick or North Brunswick or Franklin Township, no town halls. I'm like, what is going on here? We need someone that understands us, right? And then I started to do a little more research, right? The Oprah bill here in the state of New Jersey, where people like you and me could file to get information for things that we want to see and done, or like minutes of meetings. Like one of my
Yeah, the
incumbent,
Oprah, it stands for Open Public Records Act, right?
yes,
For
Open
folks.
Public Records Act.
But that was a very big headline last year for a lot of us.
Yes, and
Yeah.
one of the incumbents, right? He sponsored the
Yeah.
bill, like, and just
Yep.
destroyed it. So now, researching into the bill, I see where if me and you, if we ask about Oprah or try to get too many of them, they have the right to sue us now because we're being almost like harassment that we want to get information from the state of New Jersey. It's our right. It's our right to know what's going on here in our state. So you're telling me that now you can make law and procedures and just say yay or nay, and we just have to deal with it, and we just don't get no information from it. It is what it is, and we just have to take it. That is not fair. We pay tax dollars here. We work here, we live here, we need to know what's going on. And
Yeah.
if we don't have our assemblymen telling us what's going on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, giving us some news, some tea, something like, to tell us, this is the bills that are being passed. These are your rights to know. We don't get that. We don't get any of those. So I understand that. I am a working person, 9 to 5. I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I was canvassing this weekend in Franklin Township. Everyone opened the door. Every door I knocked, they opened the door, and they said that no one's never came to the door and said who they are and why they're running, and they appreciate just the knock on the door. Now, could you imagine
Yeah.
that? I'm the first person that ever knocked on their door. I mean, just like you said, people have been in the seats for 20 years and
Yeah.
and don't think about like, "Oh, well, I don't have to run my race. I don't have to do anything. They're just going to vote me back in." But I'm glad I'm running because they have to understand this. I'm the first person of color even running, woman of color, to run for this office in my district. So, and I hate to say it, we're still saying the first of everything. Like it's 2025. Like, when are we going to stop saying that? So it's just amazing how, and I don't want to bash the incumbents either. I'm pretty sure they've done some great work in the district, but 20 years, is very small from what I see that I can see in my eyes, right? What they've
Yeah.
done. But, I just don't see it. But I really want to make a difference. And just like you said, we don't have no term limits, but 2 years is too short of a term span to even make a
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yeah.
Right, Nicole? Because you get in, you're gonna try to figure it out, and then next year you're running
Uh-huh.
again. It's really
Yeah.
there's
And
no
you're
impact. You can't.
fundraising all the
Yes, you
time.
always fundraising. You can't have no measure of scale to see what you've done and how you've done it. So, and that's why, that's one of the things I would like to put into play or try to start, some type of term limits 4 or 6 years to let people like actually make a difference and show their work and see what they can
Yeah.
do. Right. So, but,
Yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple things. One, I think, in some of these districts that feel like they're gerrymandered or very safe, like what you're describing is not uncommon for people to not really know who the representative is. If you look at Congress, you hear all the time that, oh, that's a red seat, that's a solid blue seat. The person that's in that seat has probably been there for decades and doesn't really have to campaign that hard. And then you kind of do have, a situation where somebody just feels like that's their seat and they've earned it and they're there and they don't maybe feel the pressure to be as accountable, right, and to knock doors and to respond to constituents because they just feel like they're safe. And I feel like that's when we really start to see this erosion in trust of the process and the system, and people get really frustrated. And I get why when people feel the way you feel and these other constituents feel, they may be tempted to vote for someone like a Donald Trump because they're like, this system isn't working for me. No one's representing me. This guy at least like talks in a language I understand, and I understand like he's tapping into something that I feel too. I feel like I've been totally given the shaft. Granted, we can question his motives of why he talks the way he does and everything. But I think that's one of the problems we really need to overcome is that on both sides of the aisle, you have people that have just not held up their end of the bargain to their constituents. So I applaud that you are stepping up and doing something that's probably a little bit intimidating because you are running against an incumbent. And you also brought up this Oprah bill because New Jersey is like renowned or notorious for corruption, for sketchy things happening. We had a U.S. senator that recently was indicted. There's allegations of corruption all the time. Our taxes are really high. People want to know where their tax dollars are going and how backroom deals are getting cut. And then like you have all these like this suspicion around our governing principles, and then you have a body that's now making it harder to get information by requesting public records. That is something that I'm glad that you brought up and you're really passionate about, and you're running against the person who put that bill, who co-sponsored that bill, because every advocate I know in the state was absolutely disgusted with that bill taking place. Could you talk just quickly about like what an Oprah request may be? Because I think for people who really aren't in the weeds on this, like you and I, they maybe not real. I don't think everyone really gets why this bill in particular is such a problem for us.
So, anyone could do an Oprah request, right? So, say let's go to a local level. So, you're at your county meeting, and someone they have a agenda, and you didn't know about this resolution that they were doing for your town. And I'm just gonna say we had a resolution about our wetlands, and someone says, "Well, when did that come about?" And when was it on the agenda? Can you give me some more information? So you can request an Oprah from the town to let them they give you all the records of, like, say that the example I said, the wetlands, when it started and all the way up to now, say this month that they did the resolution. And you can read all the minutes. And hopefully it doesn't take no more than 7 days, 5 to 7 days for them to get the Oprah request to you. So you just go in your system for the town, you ask for the Oprah request, and you be very specific of what you're asking for. So then they'll send it to you, and then you can review what the information is about. Right. And sometimes, they'll come back and say, no, Like they'll say, no, we don't have any information about that, or why you wouldn't have any information about that, because everything should be recorded. So this is the Open Records Act, everything, from the state government, from your town, everything should be recorded, and every minute should be done and taking notes for anything that the towns or the state to the federal government that's having a town hall meeting. When you as a citizen wants to know something, you could request the information, right? Anyone could request the information regardless of what it is. You can request the information. It is your right as a citizen. Anywhere in your town, you can request anywhere in the state of New Jersey. If you would like, you could request an Oprah, like Mercer County. I live in Middlesex. I can request in Mercer or Camden. If I heard about something, I can request so I could have that information so I could be informed, right? I want to be informed about certain things I need to know. It doesn't matter where you're at, you can request the information. Once you request the information, then you may want to request more, right? You can request as many as you want. It's your right. But then they here in New Jersey is saying if you request too much, now it's harassment, right? Why is it harassment if you're just requesting information, right? They don't want to send out the paper. I don't understand. Like, we have come a long way. You could send it electronically. Like, I mean, why not? Like, but they send it out via paper. So I'm not understanding that either. I mean, we have the funds, to send out information. I don't know if people don't want to do it, or, they don't have the personnel to do it or whatever, but it's our right. So you shouldn't put it in act if it's not our right to have it, right? And
Yeah.
just like you said, corruption is it's just all over in the state of New Jersey. And once it's on file, right, and then people start seeing it in writing, it's another story. You could talk all day and they have it on video, but once it's in writing, it's like law, right? So people, they don't want that. They don't want that on paper, right? And when people start having it, they can start spreading it around, showing people, talking about it, and they don't want you to talk about it. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. They don't want you. They don't want you to go down to Trenton. They don't want you to rally anymore. They don't want the rallies. They don't want you doing the call to actions. They just don't want that, because now they have
Yeah.
to respond, right?
Well, and they've
Now they have to.
also passed a law, I think, to make it harder for people to get into the state house as well. I was talking to when I had an episode with a journalist in the state house, and she's like, I don't know why they would do that. It's like not like they have such a big problem with people going to the state house all the time. So
Well, we had a
on every
problem
aspect.
even. Yes, we even had a problem. Sorry, Nicole. We even had a problem even with the signatures when we first started. It was
Yes.
100 petition signatures right in I mean, after we got the petition signatures, I remember mine said 100, and maybe a month later, like 2, 3 weeks later, they raised it to 250. So,
Yes.
no one, like, no, it was just like, who does that? Like, it was already
Yeah.
out the 100.
Yeah, so that was, I think, that was like January or something. You guys were already in a campaign
Already
cycle.
in.
You're in the middle of the
Yes.
campaign cycle. I know other candidates that were running against, they were primary contests against incumbents. Several people were like, yep, I'm in. I got my signatures. And then they passed that bill and said, no, you're not. Now, and it went from 100 to 250, right? I mean, it more than
100
doubled.
to 250. It more than doubled. Yes,
And
absolutely.
the rationale was like, oh, we don't want superfluous or like too many candidates running. I'm like, the last time I checked, I didn't have 10 people beating down my door every campaign cycle to run for assembly. I mean, I just don't see that as a
No.
problem. So,
Look,
I mean, it was ludicrous, ludicrous.
it was. And as a mom, right? And, just having just mom duties, I had my 100, and I have a daughter who was in cheer competition. And normally that's my weekends that I was doing, getting my signatures. And I just couldn't do it. Like, I mean, I had to really like beat the pavement my last 2 to 3 weeks for the rest of my signatures and above, right? Because of course they challenged my signatures, and the way they challenged my signatures, Nicole, I could tell you, was just, I thought I had tough skin, but I mean, Monday I went in there to hand in my petition. I'm
Yep.
excited. It's my first run at the state. I was asking all the questions, like, just let me know. I put them in. I said, if I have to come back, I'll come back, just because some signatures and notarizations and just, the due diligence that, I thought I was good. And they said 3 days, someone could like, challenge your petition. There, Friday, I just thought I, was good. Friday, 5 o'clock, everything was good. 11:30 at night, I'm getting ready to lay down. I see a phone call. Of course, as a mom, you don't know this number. It called me like 3 times between 11:15 and 11:30. I thought something was wrong with my son in
Course.
college. I
Yeah.
called the number back, right? I called the number back, and guess what? It was the state of New Jersey saying you're being challenged. And
Yeah.
I
It's
said,
crazy.
who does that? You don't call people during working hours? You wait till 11:30 to tell someone that they're being challenged? But this is what they do because I guess the whole day is up until 12 o'clock midnight. But
Yeah.
you could understand how I felt at 11:30 at night.
Absolutely.
Someone calls you and says that, right? So I had to
Yeah.
scounger up like what is going on. I start like texting at 11:30 at night, like what am I supposed to do? What's the next steps to do, for the challenger? So Monday comes around, we had to put in our plea to, go to the courts, and it was just a big mess, Nicole. I mean, I had to go to court, people on the live challenging my incumbents on my call, challenging my signatures and how I put them in. It was disheartening, to be honest with you.
Well,
I
and
really
it's so unnecessary, it's so unfair, it's so unwarranted. I mean, here you are clearly trying to do what's right. I know when we previously discussed this incident, you outlined very clearly that you like from the outset you wanted to be very clear on the rules. You took notes. You got the names of the people you were talking to and getting information from so you have a paper trail to back up that you asked the right questions. You were following the rules. You were clear on the process. And just from knowing the type of person you are, I mean, I understand that these rules are in place to make sure people aren't just forging, 200 signatures, but it's clear that that's not what you were doing. And it's clear on the flip side that, you know, the timing here was a tactic in and of itself, right? To throw you off and drop this bomb on you at the 11th hour, literally the 11th hour on a Friday night,
absolutely.
and try to kind of discourage you. And that really pisses me off because I think, like, not to sound like too much of a capitalist or anything, but competition is good. Competitive elections are good. Primary contests are good. This is all good for democracy. We should always have contested elections. I've joked about, just like running in my own town just for the sake of having a contest. There's a great national organization called Contest Every Race. And even in like the reddest of red districts where it seems like a Democrat can't possibly win, they always try to get someone to run for those seats because competitive elections are good for our democracy. It's better for constituents to have a choice and to have competition. So to try to squash competition and discourage it and eliminate it altogether, as they did with you, I mean, I just think that's absolutely disgusting. And I really hope that, the voters in your district send a very clear signal on primary day that, like, that is not an acceptable way to be conducting business.
I must say, though, Nicole, everyone's not that way. I always make sure that I introduce myself because this is a democracy. I introduce myself to the candidates that I'm running, and I just said, have a great campaign. I'm not trying to, smear them. I just want to run the race and I want to finish the race. And that almost put me under, but I'm still here. I'm still
Yeah.
running, and I'm hopefully I get to the primary, and it's icing on a cake if I win the primary, to be honest with you, and to go into November's general election.
Well, even, contesting a race, that a lot of people probably, I don't know the last time that this person had a primary challenger, especially one with the backing that you have. I mean, you're running on a slate with Steve Fulop for governor, and he's made a lot of big splash in the Democratic primary. And you personally, despite these challenges, you've gotten some really great endorsements. Do you want to talk a little bit about where you are on endorsements?
Yes, I have. Like, I am just so elated about the endorsements that I received. Again, first was Stephen Fulop that endorsed me to run for the candidacy. And then I got Good Government New Jersey. They endorsed me as well, which I'm just so happy for. And the Working Families Party, which is a big one. The Working Family Party has been like just out there canvassing with me, door knocking, social media platforms. All of my endorsements have done that too as well. Food and Water Action Fund, they have endorsed me and they've been full-fledged helping me canvas too with the social media platform. Mental health and wellness, it's a big one too for me. The endorsements for those, everything is what I believe in. Like, I'm not going to just be endorsed to be endorsed. That those endorsements is what I believe that could truly be an impact in the state of New Jersey. Those just to name a few, but I do appreciate them and they are working with me, volunteering, just getting the word out that I am running in my district.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really great for you that you went through the process of seeking those endorsements and that you earned those. That's not like for people who don't really like do this every day. I mean, that's not easy. They have rigorous processes. You've got to not only fill out their questionnaires or maybe do interviews. They all have their own process. It's time consuming and you only get it through truly earning it and demonstrating to them that you understand their concerns and that you're going to be an advocate for them, especially Working Families Party. That's great that you got that. So I'm so happy for you to have gotten those endorsements. And I want to make sure we take a minute just for anyone listening who is inspired, who wants to support you or your campaign. What are some things folks can do in these last few weeks until Election Day that they can do to get out and support you? What's
So
going on there?
yes, so we have 29 more days to the primary. And if you would like to support me, and I will greatly appreciate it, we have phone banking that we do on designated days of Mondays and Thursdays. We have canvassing on the weekends that you can do in my district too, in Piscataway and North Brunswick and Franklin Township. South Brownbrook, we're hitting all of our towns as well. And then we're having some cute little things too. We're having a postcard party, one next week that we're doing in Piscataway, and then another one in North Brunswick at Panera. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help out. And you could go to my Mobilize app, and all the events are there that you can sign up. And of course, it takes dollars to run a
Yep.
campaign, unfortunately. But if you like to contribute any amount, and it's not big or small, we would definitely appreciate the contributions too as well.
Amazing. Well, we certainly could use more folks and more women of color like you in office, and community leaders and people just stepping up, having the courage to kind of challenge the status quo and, get elected so you can represent, your community and make some positive change. And I would say, folks in New Jersey, if you can, if you're in a district that you feel is pretty safe one way or the other, and you're looking to get involved leading up to the primary day, it'd be great if you could go knock some doors or help out Loretta's campaign in Piscataway. You're right in central Jersey. So it's really easy for people to get to from around the state if they have a little extra time. And
And
thank you so
Nicole,
much for, yeah.
I'm sorry, and you don't have to be in New Jersey to help out. Phone
Yep.
banking's all over. So you could be
Awesome.
anywhere to help out. Yes.
Great. And that's virtual phone banking. So you're doing
Virtual phone
virtually.
banking. Yes.
Very easy. Great. So for people elsewhere, you've got plenty of options to help Loretta out here. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with us despite your busy schedule. I hope getting the message out gets a little bit more support in your corner and can help you, with your race. But also, I just appreciate your story so much. It's just been great kind of, hearing from you and listening to, another mom out there who cares so much and has such a great perspective and is working to make a better New Jersey for all of our kids. We certainly could use, the advocacy. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Nicole, for having me. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for all moms listening. Thank you.